My name is Sarah Williams. For most of my life, people only knew me by another name, the weak one. They didn't say it quietly. They didn't try to hide it. It was spoken in classrooms, whispered in hallways, and implied in the way people looked at me. Weak. Fragile. Too sensitive. Not built for the real world. And for a long time, I believed them. I grew up in a small town where strength was loud. If you didn't fight back, you were considered powerless. If you cried, you were judged. If you struggled in silence, no one noticed you at all. From the outside, I looked calm, reserved, almost invisible. Inside, I was fighting battles no one could see. I was never the smartest in the room. I wasn't the strongest either. My voice shook when I spoke in public. My hands trembled when I was nervous. Teachers worried about me. Classmates ignored me or mocked me. She won't survive out there, they said. She's too weak. What they didn't know was that I was learning how to survive very early in life. My childhood wasn't cruel, but it was heavy. My mother struggled with illness, and my father worked long hours just to keep food on the table. I learned to be quiet, not because I had nothing to say, but because I didn't want to be a burden. I learned to smile even when I was breaking inside. At 13, I lost my mother. That was the moment my childhood ended. Grief entered my life like a storm that never fully left. I didn't scream or collapse the way people expect when tragedy strikes. I simply kept going. I went to school. I came home. I cooked. I cleaned. I took care of my younger sibling. People mistook my silence for strength, or worse, for emptiness. You're handling this so well, they said. But I wasn't handling it. I was surviving it. By 16, the weight of responsibility crushed me. School felt meaningless when survival felt urgent. I dropped out, took small jobs, and worked until exhaustion became my normal state. My dreams slowly disappeared, replaced by bills, deadlines, and constant fear. And still, they called me weak. At my lowest point, I believed them completely. There were nights I sat alone in the dark, wondering why I was even trying. I watched others chase dreams while I struggled just to breathe. I felt invisible, forgotten, and painfully ordinary. One night changed everything. After working nearly 18 hours, my body finally gave up. I sat on the floor of my tiny apartment and cried, not quietly this time, but with a pain so deep it scared me. For the first time, I asked myself a question I had avoided for years. What if I'm not weak? What if I'm just tired of being strong in silence? That night, I picked up a pen. I didn't plan to write anything meaningful. I just needed to let the pain escape. I wrote about grief. About fear. About being judged by people who never knew my story. I wrote until my hands hurt and my tears stopped. Something unexpected happened. I felt lighter. Writing became my escape. Every night, after work, I wrote. I didn't write to impress anyone. I wrote to survive. My words were messy, emotional, and honest. Slowly, my pain turned into clarity. Years later, a friend convinced me to share one of my pieces online. I was terrified. I almost deleted it seconds after posting. But I didn't. By morning, hundreds of strangers had commented. This feels like my life. I thought I was alone. You gave words to my pain. I stared at the screen in disbelief. For the first time in my life, people weren't calling me weak. They were calling me brave. I kept writing. Not for attention, but for connection. My stories reached people who felt invisible, exhausted, and misunderstood, just like I once did. What started as anonymous posts slowly turned into a community. Months passed. Then years. My words traveled further than I ever had. Millions read my story. Invitations followed. Interviews, speaking events, a book deal. The girl who once struggled to speak in public now stood on stages, sharing her truth. But success didn't erase my past. It gave it meaning. When people asked me how I became so strong, I told them the truth. I wasn't strong in the way the world recognizes. I was strong in the way that kept me alive. I returned to my hometown years later. The same people who once doubted me now applauded me. Some apologized. Some pretended they had always believed in me. I didn't argue, because I didn't rise to prove them wrong. I rose because I refused to give up. Today, I use my voice for those who don't yet have one. I support mental health programs, single parents, and young people who are silently struggling. I remind them, and myself, that strength isn't loud. Strength is waking up when life hurts. Strength is continuing when no one is cheering. Strength is surviving when quitting feels easier. They called me weak. Until my life story reminded the world that the strongest people are often the quietest ones, the ones who endure, who heal, and who rise without asking for permission. And if my story proves anything, it's this. Being weak was never my truth. It was only their misunderstanding.